Welcome, I'm John Caldera, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Thanks for spending a little time with us. Colorado could be in the center of the storm in 2012. Is it 2012? It can't be 2012. We're going to find out which way we're going to go from the Colorado Springs Gazette. The editor from the editorial page, Wayne Laugesen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And whenever you're pissed off at the Denver Post, I will give you his home telephone number. Curtis Hubbard from the editorial page there. How are you enjoying it?
I'll answer the call. I'm enjoying it quite a bit, thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
How long has it been now?
It's been since July, so 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
And how much hate mail have you get?
I'm going to save it this year. That's one of my resolutions.
To save all the hate mail?
Save the hate mail. So I'm going to, fill the office with that. I've got a couple of buckets set
Would
aside.
it be better if I just called you instead of typing it up, or what would be?
The email works well.
All right, so no more voicemail?
Exactly.
Do you get a lot of hate mail down in the Springs?
Zero. Everybody loves us.
Everybody.
100% of the time. Yes.
That's
my story. I'm sticking to it.
Let's talk a little bit about the Iowa caucus and what happens there now. It really turned out to be a heat between Santorum, who would have guessed, Mitt, and then Ron Paul. Give me first of all your feedback. What do we take from Iowa?
Well, I think that the question is, does Santorum stay at the top of the heap, or like everyone who's come before him to emerge as the top dog? Is he going to come back down to earth? My guess is that that's the likely scenario.
What's a likely scenario? It's certain.
It's certain.
The reason he came in
scenario.
second or almost first was because nobody knows anything about him.
But and here's Mitt Romney's problem. He's first place this time by 8 votes, the same number of votes that he received in 2008 when he was blown away by Mike Huckabee. He benefited in Iowa from a wide field, and everyone was voting for someone other than him, except for the 30,000 that came on board for him. He benefits again from Rick Perry saying he's going to stay in the race in South Carolina. I think that improves Romney's prospects there, and if he can get through Florida with another win, he's your nominee for the Republican convention in Tampa in August.
Oh, is he our nominee?
Probably, and that's all he needs to do is to get through and become the nominee, because right now he's not looking for big. He just wants to win. He just wants to get through the primaries and the caucuses. Then he's counting on big support from the independents. So as long as he can eke out any kind of victory, and it does help him tremendously to keep somebody like, it'd be great for him if Bachmann would stay in. It's great for him that Perry is staying in.
Why so?
I think, well, because it divides up the conservative votes that, it splits all that up. He gets all the moderate support that there is.
Again, it's what we conservatives do so well. We eat our own.
That's
it's a tasty diet.
And you get somebody like Romney in there who is considered well-educated. He's moderate enough to appease most of the independents, and he's going to appeal very broadly to the anyone but Obama vote, which could be huge if the economy doesn't improve dramatically between now and November.
Let's talk a little bit about Rick Santorum, since he's going to be the Mike Huckabee of this year. Nobody really knows. This guy is a social conservative first, and then any other kind of conservative afterwards. And while that's going to play well, all I see is anybody trying. You talk about the anybody but Obama. There has been an anybody but Mitt campaign going, and if Rick Santorum peaked a week ago, he would have lost by now. They would have come up with all of his so-called homophobic remarks. They would have
his support for earmarks, which came up on Meet the Press on Sunday, and that's what you're going to see in New Hampshire and South Carolina. And I think that's probably why Perry retreated for 12 hours and decided, hey, I've got a shot here. I mean, if you're a Tea Party Republican, who's your candidate? Who's your candidate now that Michelle Bachmann is gone? It's not Ron Paul, although he certainly factors into the race, and we can discuss him later.
Yeah.
It's, you're looking at it and you're saying, maybe Perry can rehabilitate himself in the next 2.5 weeks to the point where we can march through. But it's tough to envision a scenario where somebody other than Romney marches on past the Palmetto State.
I really thought that Perry was the guy, in that he came in so strong. He was the obvious Tea Party guy, the Texas miracle, the one place that people are actually getting employed and less regulation, less taxes, that he would be able to bring that together. Why did he falter so quickly? It wasn't just a couple of bad debates. I mean,
you can't look that bad in the debates. You can't look as stupid as he looked in the debates and be taken seriously as a contender against Barack Obama, because the conventional wisdom is that Barack Obama, love or hate him, is a brilliant, gifted intellectual and well-educated.
All liberals are gifted,
and we'll just
educated individuals.
And we'll take down whatever candidate gets put up against him who's not his intellectual equal. That's the perception. So there's no interest in Perry as long as he's going to stumble around in debates like that.
Newt should be able to take him out like that, because nobody's smarter than Newt.
No, the problem with Newt is a lot of conservatives have big concerns about him being a real conservative. I mean, he describes himself, right, he describes himself as a Wilsonian, as a realpolitik Wilsonian. Well, that just
I don't even know what that means.
It means he's going to intervene in the affairs of all sorts of foreign countries that, when it doesn't have any real when it's not in our vital interest at all. So it means war is what it means.
What Republicans get out of Newt, and tell me if you think I'm wrong on this, we know Newt does well on the SATs, all right? We know he writes a lot of wonderful books, but he has this personality disorder, and that his ideas are always popping, and a lot of those ideas are micromanaging ideas of how to plan our society the right way, and we don't like that. We want someone who steps away, and we don't know what his next idea will be, if it's going to be opposite of the idea he has now, and whether it's cap and trade, whether it was praising Romney care.
Yep.
And
you never know when he's going to go off. Right. And I think one of the issues also with Perry and all of these candidates except Romney is they were the top dog, and in those debates the others went after them. Nobody ever went after Romney until last night, when Newt Gingrich essentially blew his top and decided to violate Reagan's 11th commandment, and he decided to speak ill of another Republican, and he called Romney a liar. He promised that while he wasn't going to campaign negatively, he was going to tell the truth. He unveiled an ad today in the Manchester, New Hampshire newspaper in which he went directly after Romney, and that's one of the things that didn't happen until this point, and it's one of the reasons that Romney benefited. But you see it, and you see that in Newt Gingrich, and I think you worry, is that presidential? Shouldn't the attacks be left to the surrogate? And it's along the lines of what the Democrats were contending with in 2008 with Obama, when they kept wanting him to get angry and go after Hillary, and he never would.
When you say you expect him to blow up, Newt, blow up with another scandal,
just to lose his temper, or just to come up with an idea he's one of those guys that I love, because he has 100 ideas before I even wake up in the morning, and one of them is good. But it might even be great. And that's one of the things that's fantastic about him. But those other 99 are the ones that you have to be careful of.
Well, when he was Speaker of the House, I mean, Hillary Clinton summarized, she used to criticize him as being like a loose cannon of a radio talk show, not the Speaker of the House. He would, whatever pops into Newt's head comes out of his mouth. So you can count on him.
I resemble that remark. I was going to say,
you're not running for president. But as far as Santorum goes, I think this is an Iowa-only victory. I mean, he won that kissing babies and shaking hands and going door to door. He doesn't have the money. He can't keep that up in every state.
But also, when people start finding out what he's said, a anti-gay, strong Christian moral values guy might be great for the base, but I think most Republicans know that's not going to sell in November. It's not going to work, and it's not what the country is calling for. We're looking for economic progress, not moral progress.
It would only sell in November if things become so catastrophic with the economy that Obama loses no matter who's running. And then a Santorum could find himself as president of the United States. We don't know that that's going to happen. We being what you describe as your side, my side of the aisle, we don't know that things are going to go that badly, and I suspect they won't. I think that that Obama is smart enough to have engineered whatever sort of recovery, whether sustainable or just sort of a facade of a recovery, when it's going to hit.
Didn't Bachmann win a straw poll in Ames, Iowa? And from that to the bottom of the heap, it just shows you that the conservatives, Tea Party folks, if for lack of a better term, we're looking for somebody who's got it, and nobody's got it.
Yeah, well, she really hurt herself at the Florida debate with several misstatements, but the biggest one was her comment about vaccinations and having spoken to the mother of a child who was left mentally retarded as a result of a vaccination. And, you know, a regular person looks at that and it just doesn't pass the BS test. And it didn't seem like she was ready for prime time. And there were other opportunities there. The other issue in Iowa, and one of the things that Santorum benefited from, is the economic situation there is much better than most of the rest of the country. I think I saw a figure last night. 5% unemployment.
5%, yeah.
And so the
That's because it's Iowa. Who the hell wants to live in Iowa?
The farmers do
you know
who are selling us groceries at Whole Foods.
North Dakota has like -5 unemployment.
Right.
Because nobody wants to live there.
But the message then becomes more about the social conservative talking points than less about the economy.
Actually, North Dakota has become quite a high-tech hub, the Fargo area of North Dakota. It has to do with labor costs.
Well, and also, actually, look at North Dakota. North Dakota has these great natural resources. They have less government, and everybody who watched the movie Fargo wants to live there.
That's it.
Because they want to see
that movie.
Willie Macy to see. So let's talk Ron Paul a little bit. And that this, you know, people thought Ron would come in first or second. Third is still much better than he's
Pretty
done.
good when you're Ron Paul.
When you're Ron Paul, but one survey showed that only 51% of Ron Paul voters in the caucus were actually Republicans or leaned Republican, that you had a lot of unaffiliateds and you had some spoilers coming in.
You have young independents. If Ron Paul could be viable as a presidential candidate for the next 20 years, at some point he would win. Because as younger people come of age, his support base grows.
Why is
so
that?
It's a lot better now than because they don't like
anti-war and they like pot.
Yeah,
and
they
those
want to be
are
left
two
alone.
things that young people are all for. In large measure. The interesting thing about Paul, and this
not the spending issues, not the reality. I mean, he sings to me when it comes to fiscal issues. He's a guy who says, you know, this is we've got to look this head on. This is unsustainable. Big changes need to happen. But you think that the young, it's just pot and they don't want to get drafted.
Yeah, because they're not in the marketplace yet where taxes and government spending are really hitting them, or where they're looking for those benefits.
Don't you hate the young? They suck.
I eat the young.
Yeah.
But Paul is shaping up to be the big spoiler and could be one of the bigger keys to Obama's reelection if he's indeed reelected.
Yeah.
The Republicans have to figure out a way to keep him and his supporters happy. If he mounts a third-party bid, it's over and Obama's reelected.
Isn't it too late to do a third-party bid?
Not for the Libertarians. I mean, they have spots on, you know, ballots across the country, and he has got the network, both financially and digitally, to motivate and move people to the polls.
I don't think he's going to do a third party, though. I agree with you completely if he does that. You know, it's a big deal. It's not like the guy who's running on the Libertarian ticket. I mean, if Ron Paul mounts a third-party candidacy, it's trouble for the Republicans. He's going to take all of those young independents. I don't think he will. He met with us in 2008 with my editorial board, and absolutely.
Did you guys get stoned?
Yeah, we all sat around and got very high.
Big fatty?
Yeah. No, he absolutely categorically ruled out any possibility. He doesn't think he can become president as a third-party candidate. Or that was,
and that's what he needs to do now. He just hasn't ruled. And this cycle, he has not definitively ruled it out. And you know, politically, you can see why he wouldn't. But it's something that's out there.
Well, let's bring it to Colorado, and that from almost every analyst that I've listened to, they've said that Colorado is a must-win for Obama. The way they do it, matter of fact, there was an interesting piece, I think it was even in Mother Jones or someplace, where they said, you know, it's Colorado. Colorado is a must-win.
If he carries everything else they expect him to carry, right?
Yeah, if they expect that they have it. And so Colorado, you know, here we are finally, a nice, quiet election season. We're not having a senator up for election. We don't have a governor up for election. We don't have to watch all those ads. Oh, wait a second, we do.
Will.
And so I see both sides starting to gear up. I see that Obama has now a second office up in Fort Collins, and of course the Republicans have, well, nobody, and the left is putting in their infrastructure. He's come out here, what, 3 times in the course of almost a month. I found it fascinating who he chose to see. I forget the first one. Second one was a school. So
Lincoln High School.
He could go to the teachers and say, you know, hey, I'm your guy.
And Latinos.
And Latinos. Then he went the next time out to Auraria campus to say to all the kids, you don't have to pay us back those student loans quite as fast as you thought. Don't worry, I'm your man. So he's really working on those bases. What do you see in Colorado?
Well, there are three scenarios for Obama, and Colorado's one of the three. It's the Western strategy, and that involves the states that John Kerry won in 2004, plus Colorado, plus New Mexico, plus Nevada. That's the Western strategy. New Mexico is largely an Obama state now, given the former governor's name there, who I always blank on, is running. No, it's Johnson now running as a libertarian candidate. So chalk that one up for Obama. That means it's Nevada and Colorado are in their targets, and Colorado is a place with a Democratic governor where we elected Democratic Senator Michael Bennet. It's that Bennet strategy of pointing out where Republicans are on social issues, of appealing to suburban women, of appealing to Latino voters, appealing to young people that you're going to see from Obama. It's why he chose Lincoln High School. It's why he chose Auraria. And you'll see it manifested in his visits and in what his surrogates are saying when they're out speaking on his behalf.
Cranky old white guy vote. Once we white guys, cranky old white guys, get together as one voting block,
we can rule the world.
No, we'll just have a block party.
I think Ron Paul had that in his newsletter.
What about Colorado? I mean, I was surprised that Colorado went for Clinton on his first term, not his second, and I was very surprised it went for Obama.
Colorado's going to do very well for Obama if the Republicans don't select as their candidate someone who's at least comes across as relatively moderate on social issues. For better or worse, that's what's going to play in Colorado. So Mitt Romney does pretty well in Colorado. Rick Santorum has a harder time in Colorado. Ron Paul does okay in Colorado. I think we're going to see Ron Paul do very well in February here. So
it's that the libertarian leanings of leave me alone. The government shouldn't be in my life, and I think that's what people respect about Dr. Paul. I think that's what they look for in a lot of candidates, and why Democrats do better than expected.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the rip in the conservative movement between libertarian-leaning Republicans and social conservative Republicans. And we've got Kevin Lundberg from your part of the state who's now putting forward a bill to make sure that if you're getting a divorce, you have to wait if you have kids and take a class specified by the state. That kind of stuff doesn't really fly in Colorado.
No, and the only place it does fly is in the market that I publish for, and that's El Paso County and sort of the greater Pikes Peak region. You have Focus on the Family there. You have a lot of evangelical organizations that have been drawn in the past couple of decades because Focus is there. So it has sort of become a mecca for Christian 501c3s in the way that Boulder might be a mecca for environmental organizations and think tanks and such. So you have that going on in El Paso County. A lot of the people who are running these numbers saying, well, Colorado's the battleground, are also saying that El Paso County is really the battleground within Colorado. If Republicans do very well in El Paso County, meaning they poll about 64, 65%, Obama cannot win Colorado. Anything less than that in El Paso County, and it's a problem for the Republicans. So they have to show up in droves. I mean, that has to be.
Doesn't that speak, though, that if it's a Romney, he might not excite the base in El Paso County?
That's right. And another thing that's going to be, just today, the pro-medical, the pro-marijuana legalization people got the signatures they need, apparently, to get that on the ballot, which could excite another base. That could work against Republicans in November. Although the libertarian side of the Republican base is going to come out for that as well.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. We'll also have the personhood amendment.
Right,
because that's just going to keep.
Always.
Well, let's just face it; it's going to be there for the rest of our lives. The personhood amendment. So you've got pot and personhood on the ballot. Who wins Colorado? If put on the other hat. Let me put it this way: put on the other hat. Pretend that you went to a good school and now you're a conservative, and you want a Republican president.
Hillsdale.
You went to Hillsdale.
I send the personhood people packing, and I say, look, we have to win a different battle in order to win the war. Every time this personhood measure gets put on a ballot, Republican candidates are asked about it. They're then tagged with this question, and it's a difficult one to answer. Ask Ken Buck if he wished he had answered it differently against Michael Bennet, but he answered it affirmatively in the primary process when he was trying to appeal to conservative Republicans, and the Democrats pegged him with it, and they'll continue to do it. Romney already came out in support of personhood at the state level, so if Romney's the nominee, he's going to get asked that same question. It's going to be difficult. One thing I wanted to point out was, while you mentioned Kevin Lundberg and his bill on marriage counseling, the same day we had a story about a group of Republicans, none of them I don't think currently holding office, but who were pointing out that Republicans should support civil unions for same-sex couples on a personal freedom, a liberty standpoint. And I thought that was an interesting dichotomy between the party. On the one hand, you had the guy who sort of wants to be in your bedroom, or at least wants a counselor in your bedroom.
I am tired of Kevin trying to get into my bedroom. Kevin.
Stay away.
Not that I'm not flattered.
That's only Doug Dean, right? He's the only one that... But that's the interesting dichotomy for conservatives and Republicans in Colorado. Is on the one hand, you have these more moderates who are trying to find a path forward, trying to find a way that Tim Gill and his army won't target them in state house races and won't target them on those social issues. And then you have people like Kevin Lundberg who keep opening the door for those attacks to continue.
Who would do the best for the Republicans in Colorado? If the goal was to choose the Republican presidential candidate who would win Colorado, who would that be?
Well, and I'm biased because I'm in Denver, and I think Wayne makes a good point about El Paso County, but I think it's Mitt Romney. I really do, and I've said on your show before, I think John Huntsman has potential, but he's too moderate for you. And that's the challenge. Is if there is a moderate Republican, that's not good enough for many of the arch conservatives.
What about Mormonism? I mean, I don't want to talk about Catholics, but Mormon Catholics. I see a whisper campaign coming out in the next year. I think Romney gets the nomination, and I also see a whisper campaign about what is Mormonism. What is it? Scientology? Is it a cult? You've got some Christians calling it a cult, and I don't see it as an attack on Romney. I see it as an attack on anybody who believes in what Romney believes. I mean, you could go right after Kennedy and say, "I don't want the Pope to control you."
Right.
That doesn't fly with this one.
I think that's a fabricated deficit for Romney. I don't think it's that big a deal. If it's not going to be a big deal in El Paso County, which I don't think it will be, it's not going to be a big deal anywhere. I mean, you got to look. Who's the most popular? Probably the second or third most popular right-wing talk show radio host is Glenn Beck. He's a Mormon. He talks about being a Mormon all the time. Doesn't seem to hurt him at all as far as the base of Christian fundamentalist listeners who tune into him all of the time. And so I don't think that's an issue.
I disagree. And I think in Colorado we're exceptional in that we live and work among Mormons, and it's just second nature to us that they're like any other religion. I think in the South, among Baptists and Southern Baptists especially, it is an issue. And you saw that earlier this year when Perry's pastor talked about Mormonism being a cult. Perry made a play for that in one of the last debates in Iowa. When he was talking about being the Tim Tebow of the Iowa primaries, that was code. Right. That was code for, I am an evangelical Christian, I am not the Mormon up on this stage.
Look how he finished in Iowa.
And Rick Santorum emerged, but there's a reason that Perry is moving on to South Carolina, and it's because he feels like that could be the place where he makes his last stand.
Will Romney be able to excite the base? That is the Tea Party folks. Here's my nightmare scenario. Romney comes here, and our active base of Tea Party activists. We don't have the teachers union. We have Tea Party folks who take time off their job. They go, and they stay home. Right. Or we get somebody like Rick Perry as the nominee, and the Tea Party folks get so excited that they scare away the independents, going, "Oh my God, this is." He
will not excite the base, but Obama doesn't excite his base either. They will tolerate him, and if there's a big enough anti-Obama movement, then the base becomes less significant. So I really don't think there's any chance that he excites the fundamentalist, conservative Christian voter in Colorado or any place else, but they'll vote for him.
Will local seats, we've only got a couple minutes left, will local fights have an impact here? In that, since we don't have a governor's race, and we love a governor's race. Oh my God, there's nothing juicier for Colorado than a governor's race, maybe a Senate race. This is different. Also, talk to me about what happens in February. That's a little different than usual.
We have the Republican caucuses in February on the 7th, and it will be essentially it's non-binding as far as delegates to the convention go. So we're not being penalized for moving ahead of Nevada, although I think they're on the 4th, moving ahead of in the calendar. So Romney will likely win. He won handily in the 2008 Republican caucuses. At the local level, the congressional races will be fascinating to watch, given the disdain, 11% in most recent Gallup poll for Congress. The Democrats thought that they had an opening. They created maps that made Mike Kaufman newly vulnerable in a 6th congressional district that's among the most competitive in the country. The thing they forgot to do in creating that district was find a candidate who could win it. So Mike Kaufman, I think, if you ask me now, based on what I know of the two Democrats running against him, I don't see how Mike Kaufman is defeated.
But out on the western slope, Scott Tipton and Sal Pace, that could be another story.
Right. You know, I don't know how much local races are going to play into the outcome of the presidential race, but I do know that you know, Governor Hickenlooper told my editorial board that he will support Obama. That he, you know, they will seek his endorsement and he'll give it because he's a Democrat. But I didn't sense any enthusiasm at all on his part. The way that he described it is, I don't plan to actively campaign for him. This is not a direct quote, but he doesn't plan to actively campaign. But they'll seek his approval and he'll give it because he's a Democrat, qualifying it like that.
Just 10 seconds left here. Tell me, who's going to win in Colorado, the Republican or Obama?
Obama.
I don't like you.
I'm sorry.
I never liked you.
Well, let's meet on November 7th and we'll see.
Who's going to win?
Romney gets the nomination and carries Colorado.
Ah, do we have some bets? Money? $20 now? Come on, editor, a mono editor.
$10,000. Okay, so we can create scandal.
Look for the Independence Institute on independenceinstitute.org, and we'll see you next week.